Hello everyone, this is Mrs. Pope, and today we are talking about one-point perspective and creating a city. Our city is actually going to be created from an ant's eye view. That means we're going to pretend like you're way down here at the bottom of the building and you are looking up at the sky. So as the building gets taller, it's going to appear like it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller because it's going further and further and further from you. When we create today, we're only practicing, so we're not going to get as far as this right here unless you choose to do that on your own. We are mainly going to focus on right here. How do we start those buildings? How do we create them and make them appear as if they are going further and further into the distance? And we start that by adding our vanishing point, which we are going to have one vanishing point because we are doing a one-point perspective. Then we are going to second start adding the front faces of our buildings. So right here is actually step one of what we will be doing. This up here is more along the lines of step 2 and 3 when we start adding some details to the front of those buildings. These three still do not have the sides of the buildings. They are missing. They are just the fronts of the buildings. I wanted to show you what they look like before you add the details and what the front of the buildings look like after you add some details. So let's get started. What you will need is a piece of paper to draw on, a pencil for today, and also a ruler. I do not have a ruler handy with me right now, so I'm going to use the edge of a folder. And if you do not have a ruler either, it is perfectly fine to find something to trace as long as it is a straight edge. And a folder is kind of the perfect edge because it's nice and sturdy and straight. When we start our one-point perspective city drawing, we are going to start with that one vanishing point that we're going to place right in the middle of that paper. It does not matter if your paper is vertical like this or horizontal this way, side by side. It does not matter. In fact, I'll leave mine this way because that is the way that I drew my others. From here, we're going to start drawing the front faces of those buildings. And when we create the front faces of those buildings, we're actually going to be creating a triangle. And that vanishing point is going to be that top vertice in our triangle. So you're going to line up your ruler or straight edge, whatever you're using, and make sure that it connects that vanishing point all the way to the bottom edge of your paper. And then you are simply going to trace that line. And then we're going to repeat that to create the other side of our triangle shape. So again, we're going to line up our ruler or straight edge, whatever you are using for that, and then you are going to draw the line. I think I'm going to make this one just a little bit skinnier, about right there. When I said I'm going to make it a little bit skinnier and I move the ruler or my folder in, if you look at the space that's right here, that will show you how wide your building is going to be. If you want your building to be skinny, you want it to be a little skinny triangle. If you want it to be wider, go ahead and make it wider at the base, at the bottom of it. So you decide if you want this building to be skinnier or wider. I will let you make that decision. And then you are simply going to connect and draw that line as well, right against that straight edge. And now we have our triangle for the first of our building. Now I want us to create two for a practice. So we're going to do it again. So I have right here, I'm drawing my first line from that vanishing point to the edge of my paper. Then I'm going to draw the next one. And this one I'm actually going to draw a little bit wider. So now I have my two triangles that I have started off just like in our example. So here is our two triangles. Our next step is going to be what I call cutting off the building, where you decide how tall you want your building to be or how short you want it to be. In our practice page right here, it is not all of these lines continuing on are not erased. We are actually going to erase everything above where we have decided to cut off our building. So next you decide how tall you want your buildings to be. And I think I'm going to want this one to be a little bit shorter and this one right here to be a little bit taller, just to give a little bit of a variety. Plus, it makes your artwork look a little bit more interesting if everything's not on the same length or cut off level. When you cut off the buildings, what you need to do is look first at that bottom edge. Where is that bottom edge? And then you're going to take that bottom edge and you are going to make sure that your line that you cut off is parallel to the bottom edge. So if I look right here where I cut off my buildings, that line is parallel. It is not going to the vanishing point because you are cutting off those buildings. So I'm going to draw my line. I'm going to decide where I want it. This one I want to be a little bit shorter. I need to make sure that it's parallel to the bottom edge of my paper. So that looks pretty even. So I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to draw from one side all the way to the other. And I can go ahead and move my folder or ruler, and everything above it we are going to erase. Try not to erase that vanishing point yet because we are not done with it. And now we're going to do the same thing to the second building. So you decide where you want that building cut off. Try to make sure that it is parallel. One easy way to make sure it is parallel is if you line up your ruler actually to this side of it, or you line up your folder to this side of it, it should be pretty parallel to that bottom edge. And then I'm going to go ahead and draw my line across, cutting it off, and then I erase the rest. Now we are not done with this building. We are only going to draw 2 buildings, but we are not done with that vanishing point or these buildings because we have not drawn the sides of the buildings. Now for the sides of the buildings, I actually want to make it look like I'm standing right about here. So I'm going to see the side here and the side here. So in order to make that, now that we have the fronts of them, we want to create the sides of both of those. So we're going to take our handy dandy ruler again, and we're going to draw another line from our vanishing point to the bottom edge of the paper. But this time I want you to pay attention to the difference between the distance between this line and the line you're about to draw, because that's going to be how deep your building is, how far back your building goes. So this one right here, I want it to be a little bit skinnier because I drew it pretty wide in the front. So I want this building to look like it's wider in front and smaller on the sides. So I'm going to line it up. Again, this line should still go to the vanishing point, and I'm going to go ahead and draw that line. And I'm going to do the same thing for this building. So I'm going to take my folder, I'm going to decide, or ruler, and I'm going to decide how wide I want it to be. And I'm thinking maybe about right there looks good. And I'm going to draw my line down. Now, it looks like I have started a new building right here in the center, because I have started off with the same exact way that I did the others, which I could do that as a building in the center if I chose. But I'm really using this line for this edge of the building and this line for this edge of the building. So what I need to do is connect this line to this building to make it look like this is all one piece. And the way that I do that is I need to cut this line off as well and make it connect. And I like to call this the L or the 7, because when you do this, in order to make it look correct, which it might look a little funny at the beginning, is this top line and this side line need to make almost a perfect 90-degree angle, which also creates an L or a 7. In this case, it would be a backward 7. So if I have my ruler and I line my ruler up and I line it to the bottom edge to make sure that I have a nice straight up and down edge, and I make it go all the way over to that vertice of the building, now I can connect this top corner vertice all the way down until I get to the line. Now I have my side of my building, and I can erase the rest of this line. And I'm going to do the same thing on this one. I am going to have my ruler, I just flipped it the other way so I could see it a little bit differently. Now this one's going to look a little bit weird because of the angle of the building, because of how wide I made the building. So you're going to line it up and make it go perfectly straight up and down, and then you are going to draw that line straight up and down. And if you notice, it actually connects down there at the point. So you might think that that is wrong, but it's not. It's because of how deep, how wide I made that building up here. So again, you're just going to erase this whole thing. Trust the L or the 7. I promise you it is correct. Just trust it. All right, and then I can erase this vanishing point because I don't need it anymore. Now I have the two main parts of my building drawn. What I would like you to do from here is go ahead and take a black marker, red, pink, whatever color marker you want, because again, this is a practice. And I want you to just draw on top of those lines to make them stand out a little bit more. If you use your ruler, and I'm going to show you a difference. So right here, I chose not to use my ruler. I do it a little fast and it's a little wobbly. If I use my ruler to draw those lines, I want to show you the difference on how much clearer, how nice, clean, and crisp those lines can really get if you use a straight edge compared to not using a straight edge. So on this building right here, I made sure I used my ruler and my straight edge, and I can clearly see that these lines are nice and straight, and this one has a few wobblies. So always try to use your ruler when you're drawing nice straight lines, especially buildings, because it does make a difference. What I like you to do from here is go ahead and color in that side part of the building, because this is going to show that it is the shadow. It's going to help create more depth in your drawing, which is what we are wanting. After you do that, I want you to play around with just adding a few details to the building. Again, this is your practice. If you make some mistakes, it's okay. If you want to draw and add more than 2 buildings, go for it. If you want to try and add some color in the background, go for it. Today is a practice, not a final copy. Next class time, next session, we will be creating our final copy together. So I just want you to understand the steps that we are going to be taking to create that final copy. So right here, I have my 2 buildings done, created, and I am ready to add some details. So I'm going to turn this one this way and place it right on top so you can see a couple of different details that you can create for windows. And we're going to talk about that more next time during our final copy. But what I would like you to do today is just play around with it, see what you can come up with, and I will see you next time for our final copy. Can't wait to see what you come up with.